William, a 27-year-old millionaire, maintained a routine marked by his scowling expression and severe posture. Every day, he arrived at the company with a hard look that made employees shy away for fear of a possible reprimand. Some pretended to be busy, while others let out a sigh of relief after he entered his office and closed the door with force. The atmosphere in the office was heavy with his presence. Everyone knew his reputation as William Brutto, a nickname that was only spoken behind his back, as no one dared to confront him. Despite being a competent and visionary leader, William was ruthless, inflexible and did not accept opinions, not even from his oldest advisors. His transformation, from an outgoing and kind young man to this bitter and isolated figure, was a mystery to many. The loss of his father, Rogerio, 3 years earlier, seemed to have accentuated his cold and distant behavior. William preferred solitude. He had no friends and his life was as empty as the mansion where he lived. Every day, following the same automatic routine, he would go to work, where he kept his distance from others. During lunch, instead of joining his colleagues, he would take his food and head to a park across the street from the company. Sitting on a bench, he would silently watch the children playing in the playground, the families interacting, and life unfolding around him, while he remained oblivious to any real connection. Until one day, something unexpected happened. Among the children playing, one little girl in particular caught his attention every day. And when she finally revealed her true identity, something changed in William. The impassive man fell to his knees in tears, shaken by a revelation that had shaken him out of his hard shell. William lived a routine marked by loneliness and bitterness. Every day, after his solitary lunch in the park, he would return to the company, complete his workday and return to his empty house. This cycle of isolation repeated itself, without variation, day after day. However, on that particular day, something different happened. While he was sitting on his usual bench in the park, eating his tuna sandwich, something unexpected caught his attention. A little girl, standing in the middle of the playground, was watching him intently. Her large, curious and innocent eyes were a stark contrast to the seriousness that William carried. That unexpected presence moved him in a way that he had not felt for a long time. There was something familiar about the girl, but he could not understand why. As she continued to observe him, William could not look away. That simple encounter made him reflect on his own life and the choices that had led him to that point of emptiness and sadness. The silence of the park, interrupted only by the distant sound of children playing, seemed deeper at that moment. It was as if, for a brief moment, the rigid wall of coldness that William had erected around himself began to crack. In the following days, the pattern repeated itself. William followed his routine to the park, and whenever he arrived there, the same little girl was there, watching him with the same penetrating gaze. He felt a growing uneasiness, as if that gaze were revealing his most intimate secrets. Then, one of those days, the girl did something unexpected. She came over and sat down next to him. William tried to keep his expression serious, but for some reason, he couldn't. "Why are you here alone? Don't you have any friends?" The girl's question, asked with disarming innocence, took William by surprise. He hesitated for a moment before answering, "And you, why did you sit here? Don't you have any friends too?" William replied curtly, hoping that his harshness would drive the little girl away, but instead, she laughed calmly. "I have many friends, but I can't play with them now," she said, letting out a sigh. "But if you want, I can be your friend." Intrigued, he looked at the girl. There was something familiar about her that disconcerted him. With a disconcerting innocence, she seemed to break down the emotional barriers he had built over the years. "I can't be your friend, girl. How old are you? Where are your parents? Do they know that you talk to strangers?" William replied, looking around, trying to find an excuse to get rid of the girl and go back to eating in peace. However, no matter how much he tried to push her away, she remained there, sitting next to him, insisting on keeping the conversation going. Little by little, almost without realizing it, William began to answer her countless questions about his life. Somehow, He felt slightly grateful to have someone to talk to, something he hadn't had in a long time outside of a professional environment. As the conversation dragged on, he realized he was already late. His break was 45 minutes past. "I have to go, girl. Find your parents, I'm leaving," William said, getting up quickly and returning to the office. As he walked through the hallways, his posture seemed to have changed and, discreetly, a smile almost escaped his lips. "Good afternoon, William," he greeted the employees, who exchanged confused glances upon seeing him. "Was he smiling?" one of them commented. Somehow, the insistent presence of that little girl seemed to have done something to William's bitter life. During that week, at lunch in the park, William met the little girl again, who introduced herself as Aurora and revealed herself to be 7 years old. During their brief encounters, the two began to share stories. Aurora said she lived with her mother and grandfather, facing difficulties, especially because her grandfather was having serious health problems, and her mother, the sole breadwinner, worked as a clerk in a clothing store near the park. During lunch hours, her mother would let her play on the playground until she came to pick her up. The little girl spoke enthusiastically about her favorite activities and her dreams of becoming an artist, describing with a twinkle in her eye her passion for drawing. Little by little, William also began to open up, sharing parts of his life that he normally kept to himself. What had previously seemed like a mere interruption in his routine became a time when he found space to explore his own emotions and memories. These daily encounters with Aurora soon became an essential part of his days. Aurora's presence became a beacon of light in William's dark life. Their daily conversations, simple and sincere, became the most anticipated moment of the day. Little by little, Aurora melted the ice in his heart, even if he was reluctant to admit it. Each encounter with the girl made him less bitter, bringing back memories of a time when he still dreamed, before he was consumed by responsibilities and the pain of a devastating loss. William had not always been a bitter and withdrawn man. When he was younger, he was charismatic and kind, always ready to listen and spread a smile. However, his life took a tragic turn when his father committed a terrible act. William had a secret affair with Karina, the gardener's daughter who had grown up alongside him on the vast grounds of the family mansion. As the years passed, their bond grew into love. But the relationship was kept secret, fearing the disapproval of Rogerio, William's father. When Karina became pregnant, Roger, furious, fired the gardener and threw the young woman and her father out of the house, without any mercy, while William was away on a trip that his father had carefully planned to keep him away. When he returned and discovered what had happened, William was devastated. He tried everything he could to find Karina, but she and her father had disappeared without a trace. As the months passed, William fell into a spiral of bitterness and disillusionment. The sparkle in his eyes disappeared, replaced by a ruthless coldness. After years of living alone and desolate, William became a shadow of the vibrant young man he had been. His only refuge became work, into which he threw himself body and soul, using it as a shield against the pain and loneliness that corroded his heart. His father's death only intensified this dedication to business. However, with the arrival of Aurora, something began to change. The little girl's innocence and spontaneity were, little by little, transforming William. Each encounter reminded him of who he was before the tragedy. Aurora seemed like a ray of sunshine that dispelled the darkness he had retreated into, bringing a faint but growing hope of redemption and renewal. For the first time in years, William began to question his bitterness and isolation. Even his employees noticed the subtle changes. The once unapproachable man now seemed more relaxed and even smiled occasionally. Aurora's impact was undeniable, though no one knew for sure what was causing this transformation. One evening, as he was driving home, William found himself reflecting on the events that had shaped his life and what Aurora had awakened within him. Lying in bed, young William reflected on the conversations he had had with Aurora, wondering why that little girl seemed so familiar to him and the impact she had had on his life. He ended up falling asleep with a feeling of lightness he had not felt in a long time. The next morning, the sky was heavy with dark clouds, promising a storm. William spent much of the morning in his office, watching the change in the weather outside. Maybe no one will go to the park today, he thought, hesitating as he watched the rain approaching on the horizon. Despite the harsh weather, the memory of Aurora and the desire to see her again prompted him to leave the house. When he arrived at the park, he soon saw the little girl, playing happily with other little ones. The scene brought unexpected warmth to William's heart, and a genuine smile appeared on his lips. He did not fully understand why Aurora had such a profound influence on him, but something about her joy and innocence reminded him of Karina, his great love from the past. Aurora's vivacity contrasted sharply with the storm brewing in the sky. As he watched her, William found himself thinking that his son, if he were around, would be about her age. Sadness filled his heart as he pondered the whereabouts of Karina and the baby he had never met. He wondered if fate would ever bring them together. Almost as if the universe were answering his thoughts, the weather changed drastically. A flash of lightning flashed across the sky, followed by a clap of thunder, and the rain fell heavily, turning the park into chaos. Parents rushed to rescue their children and seek shelter. In the midst of the confusion, a woman ran past William, shielding herself from the rain with a piece of cardboard and urgently holding Aurora's hand. "Run, daughter, look at the rain," she exclaimed, her voice full of concern. William's heart almost stopped when he recognized that voice. He turned around slowly, struggling to believe what he was seeing. When the woman turned around, ready to run, William froze when he saw Karina's wide eyes, full of surprise and emotion. "Karina, is that you?" Her voice trembled with disbelief and hope. "William? What are you doing here?" Karina replied, equally astonished and with suppressed emotion. The surprise in her eyes was palpable. Without hesitation, William offered his umbrella to protect her and Aurora from the rain that was falling harder and harder. With a mixture of shock and anticipation, he suggested, "Let's get out of the rain. We have a lot to talk about." The three of them headed to a nearby cafe, seeking refuge from the storm and a place where they could share their stories. In the warm and safe environment of the cafe, Karina began to tell her story since she and her father were forced to leave the mansion. "I was afraid to look for you, and after Aurora was born, my father got sick, and everything got complicated," he began, his eyes full of memories and emotions that had been stored away for a long time. "I had to fend for myself to support us," Karina explained, her voice a mix of sadness and determination. Her story revealed the weight of the hardships she faced with courage and resilience. William listened attentively, his heart aching as he realized the scale of the challenges Karina had faced alone. "I've been looking for you all these years, I've tried everything to find you, but I never could." "I'm sorry, you shouldn't have gone through this alone," William confessed, tears in his eyes. As Karina recounted her struggles and suffering, William was overcome by a mixture of guilt and emotion. He had finally found the love of his life and his daughter, and he felt that life was offering him a new opportunity to rebuild what had been lost. Over time, William and Karina rekindled the love they shared, radiating happiness to everyone around them. Wasting no time, the two got married, and William's life underwent a profound transformation. Karina, Aurora, and Tom moved into the large mansion, where Tom received proper treatment and soon showed signs of improvement, while Aurora began attending a good school. Karina's presence brought back the kind and loving young man that William had been before the tragedies that marked his life. What was once a cold and lonely mansion was filled with warmth and joy, transformed by love. William and Karina's story showed that, despite obstacles and lost time, true love prevails. It was proof that, even in the darkest situations, love and hope can triumph. As William watched Aurora and Karina playing and laughing, he felt a deep gratitude for every moment together. He had finally found the happiness that he thought he had lost forever, and deep down, he knew that it was all worth it. If you liked this moving story, don't miss the next video that will appear on your screen. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like it, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss our next videos. A big kiss, and until the next moving story.